The alarm cut through the station before I even finished my coffee, and my hands started shaking before my mind caught up with what was happening. I am Oliver Grant, a communications officer on the drift station Halcyon Reach, and I still remember every second of the day, everything changed. 3 raider ships had come out of the dark side of the debris field, running with no lights and no warning. Within minutes, 6 armed men had cut through the docking ring and pushed their way inside. They grabbed 6 of our people and lined them against the wall like they had done this 100 times before. One of those 6 was Grace Whitmore, the new environmental technician who had joined us only 3 weeks earlier. Nobody on this station feared Grace. She was quiet. She smiled at everyone. She said sorry to the cargo lift when it got stuck, as if it could hear her. She ate lunch alone every day and never raised her voice. If you asked anyone to describe her, they would say soft, kind, maybe a little shy. What they would not tell you is where she came from. Grace was born on Kessa Prime, a planet so harsh that most species do not even try to build colonies there. The gravity crushes visitors within days. The storms can flip a transport vehicle without warning. Half the animals on that world see any living creature the size of a person as a meal walking on 2 legs. Yet millions of humans lived there anyway, generation after generation, refusing to give up the land their grandparents had settled. I had read her file when she transferred in. It said very little. Only one line stood out to me. Origin world classified as extreme survival environment. At the time, I thought it was just a formality. I did not understand what it truly meant until the day the raiders boarded our station. On the security feed, I watched as one of the armed men grabbed Grace by the arm to pull her into the group. For one heartbeat, her face changed. The softness disappeared. Something calm and sharp took its place, like a switch had been flipped inside her. What happened next took less than 15 seconds. She turned her arm in a way that should not have worked, and the weapon in the man's hand was suddenly in hers. Before the second raider even realized what had happened, she had already moved past him, using the small gap between his shoulder and the wall. She was not swinging wildly or panicking. She moved like water finding the only path through a narrow crack. By the time station security arrived, all 6 raiders were down. Some were unconscious, some were holding their arms in pain, and one was simply sitting against the wall, staring at her with wide eyes, as if trying to understand how someone so calm-looking could move so fast. Grace stood in the middle of it all, breathing hard, holding a weapon she had never asked for. She did not look proud. She looked tired, the way someone looks after finishing a task they hoped they would never have to do again. The other hostages, I noticed, had all dropped to the floor at the exact same moment she moved. Nobody told them to do that. It was as if their bodies had learned something from being near her these past 3 weeks, something their minds had never fully noticed. Security took over from there. The raiders were placed in holding cells, some needing medical attention first. Officers asked Grace to explain what happened, and she answered in a calm, simple voice, the same way she might explain a broken filter in the recycling system. "He grabbed me first," she said. "Where I come from, if something grabs you, it usually means it already decided you are its next meal. You do not get time to think about being polite." I found her later in the dining hall, sitting alone at her usual table, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold. I sat across from her, unsure how to start a conversation with someone I thought I understood, but clearly did not. "You apologized to machines," I said. "You said sorry to the recycling lift last week." She almost smiled. "It is not the lift's fault it gets stuck. You just disarmed 6 men in under a minute." "He grabbed me first," she repeated softly, staring into her cup. "Back home, you learn early that hesitation gets you hurt. You do not get a warning before something bigger than you decides you are dinner. So your body learns to react before your mind can even ask permission." "You forgot you were safe here," I said. She looked up at me, and for the first time since she arrived, I saw something honest in her eyes, something she had been hiding under all that quiet politeness. "I think I forgot I was allowed to be safe," she said. On Kessa Prime, softness gets you killed. You do not get to relax, not even for a moment. I came here hoping to finally put all of that behind me. I did not expect it to come back so fast. I thought about the way she flinched at loud alarms during her first week, the way people had quietly laughed it off as a typical reaction from someone raised on a harsh world. I realized now that it was not fear, it was awareness. Her mind had been trained since childhood to expect danger at every corner, and here, that training had suddenly become useful again in a way she never wanted. For what it is worth, I told her, I am glad you were there today. She managed a small, tired smile. Me too. I was really hoping I would never have to use any of that again. I believed her completely. That, I think, was the most surprising part of the whole day. It was not the speed of her movements, or the sharp calm in her eyes when the danger appeared. It was the fact that she had spent every day since arriving on this station, hoping she would never need to show anyone what she was truly capable of. Word of what happened spread quickly across the station. People who once barely noticed Grace now looked at her with quiet respect. Nobody treated her differently out of fear, but there was a new kind of understanding in the way they spoke to her. A sense that behind her calm nature was someone who had survived things most of us could never imagine. A few days later, station leadership called a meeting to review what had happened. I attended as part of the communications team, mostly to record details for our reports. Officers praised Grace publicly for her quick action, thanking her for protecting the other hostages during those dangerous minutes. She stood quietly through the praise, nodding politely, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. When someone asked her directly how she had learned to move and react so quickly, she gave the same simple answer she always gave. I did not choose to learn it, she said. My home world did not give me a choice. You either learn to survive, or you do not grow up at all. The room went quiet for a moment after she said that. I think everyone finally understood the weight behind those simple words. Kessa Prime was not just a difficult place to live. It was a place that demanded constant awareness, constant readiness, and constant strength, even from someone as gentle and soft-spoken as Grace. After the meeting, I walked with her back toward the residential deck. The corridors were quiet, the lights dimmed for the evening cycle. She walked slower than usual, clearly exhausted from the day's events. "Do you regret coming here?" I asked. She thought about it for a moment before answering. "No," she said. "I like it here. People are kind. Nobody expects me to fight for my life every single day. I just did not expect that old part of me to come back so fast when it mattered." "Maybe that is not a bad thing," I said. "It saved a lot of people today." She nodded slowly. "I know. I am glad I could help. I just wish I did not have to prove it this way." We reached her quarters, and she thanked me for walking with her before stepping inside. I stood there for a moment, thinking about everything I had learned about her in just one day. Grace was not dangerous in the way people usually imagine danger. She was not aggressive, or cold, or threatening. She was kind, patient, and endlessly polite, even to machines that could not hear her. But underneath all of that, gentleness was a strength, built through years of surviving a world that gave no mercy to the weak. Nobody on this station had ever feared the new girl. We were never wrong to feel comfortable around her. She truly was as gentle as she appeared. Our comfort was never a mistake, only a reflection of how well she had learned, through years of hardship, to carry her strength quietly, so quietly that it looked exactly like kindness, until the one moment it needed to look like something else entirely. I walked back to my own quarters that night with a new sense of respect for the quiet woman who had joined our station just 3 weeks earlier. She never wanted attention, and she never wanted anyone to see what she was capable of. But when the moment came, when people needed protection, she did not hesitate. And somehow, that made her feel even more human to me than before.